First, some introductions. My name is Ashley Williams. I am a web developer with the Office of Information Technology at the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. And Robbie Thrift is helping me out today with the Zoom chat. He is one of our programmers. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into today's presentation. Okay, so let's first just start out with understanding what web accessibility. I'm sorry, here's a quick overview. Today, what we are going to go over is understanding web accessibility, what it is, who it affects, compliance, and legal liability. We'll also talk about specific best practices content managers can implement as you edit your websites. And then towards the end, hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A. Okay. So what is web accessibility? It is the inclusive practice of making websites usable by people of all abilities and disabilities. Think of how we make public spaces accessible using things like ramps. Web accessibility best practices are like the ramps for websites. So when we design our websites with accessibility in mind, all users have equal access to the information on them. So who is impacted by accessibility issues? According to the CDC, about 1 in 4 Americans have a disability that impacts a major part of their life. So, disability becomes more common as we age, affecting about 2 out of 5 adults age 65 and older. In Georgia, 27% of adults have some type of disability. So when you think about it, that's a large chunk of our audience. And that fact becomes even more important to consider when we know that about 71% of disabled users will simply leave a website if it's not accessible. Okay, so here's a fun story. While I was making this presentation, I found this graphic on the CDC's website about disabilities in Georgia. I noticed that the alt text on the image did not match the stats in the graphic. So that means that a person using a screen reader to interpret the information on the page wouldn't get the correct stats about about disabilities in Georgia because they weren't updated in the alt text. So that same stat wasn't provided anywhere else on the page as just plain text. So I think this is like a real world example of why it's important for us to do for us to be diligent about making our sites accessible. So keep in mind, it's hard to define every issue or every type of user who will run into accessibility problems on your website. The community of website users with disabilities or impairments is pretty wide-ranging and diverse. Still, accessibility issues can be broken down into these categories. So there's auditory, that's difficulty hearing, deafness, and hearing impairments. So an example of an issue someone with those issues might run into is like a video embedded onto a web page that does not have captions. Okay. Cognitive, that would be conditions that affect the brain's memory, attention, or ability to interpret information. An example issue there would be like a website where the content has poor readability and is difficult to navigate. Motor, so various forms of paralysis caused by injury, congenital conditions and tremors. An example of an issue here would be like a website that does not support keyboard navigation for important controls, like navigating the page. So a person with those, who can't use a mouse because, they don't have the dexterity to, would have to use their keyboard instead, but then it would be impossible to navigate a website if it wasn't programmed to be keyboard accessible. Okay, and then finally, visual. So that's low vision, blindness, or color blindness caused by various eye conditions. An example of an issue here can be like the improper use of headings. which prevents a user from navigating a web page efficiently with their screen reader. So one of our reasons for maintaining accessible websites is compliance. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act Amendments of 1998 is US federal law. So it provides us the standards that must be followed by federal agencies when creating a web-based site. An example of one of those standards would be every non-text element must be accompanied by a text equivalent for those who are not able to see, hear, or otherwise access the non-text element. Section 508 standards are aligned with global guidelines developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C. So it's like an international effort. Since the state of Georgia receives federal funding under the Assistive Technology Act, the USG has determined that Section 508's regulations apply to all of its institutions, and that includes our college and UGA extension. So another concern is legal liability. Over the past couple of years, organizations have been increasingly held legally accountable for making their websites accessible. The number of ADA Title III lawsuits increased 177% from 2017 to 2018. In 2019, there were 2,256 accessibility lawsuits. So legal liability can be a real consequence of inaccessible websites, and these numbers are another reason to do our due diligence. But there are other benefits of accessibility. Accessible websites are easier for everyone to use and understand. We can reach a wider audience when we use best practices, which leads to more conversions or business goals being met. So, an example of a conversion can be something like a user is able to find contact information on their local for their local county office on their website, and so they call or visit the office. Or another one would be a potential student is able to find information about an academic program, and so they contact the department's undergraduate coordinator, because they could find that information on the website. So accessibility is also search engine friendly. Google uses a robot to read our websites, similar to how a screen reader works. So if our site is accessible, that means our site is also more search engine optimized. So, as a content manager, what is your responsibility regarding web accessibility on your website? The best practices we're going over today are the ones listed here: alt text for images, captions for video, transcripts for audio, descriptive link text, headings that organize content on the page, properly formatted data tables, and PDFs that are tagged and easy to read. So let's get into it. So users with disabilities use different assistive technology to browse the web. Assistive tech is, it can include programs or equipment that enhance learning, working, and daily living for people with disabilities. So while we're talking about best practices today, I'll be sharing some screen reader demos that I've already recorded. I think seeing what happens with the screen reader on accessible and not so accessible web pages will help give you a better understanding of why we need to follow best practices. A screen reader is basically like this program that reads out loud to the user input from a program or a web page, something on their computer. It speaks it out loud to them. It can even translate it out into Braille, which is pretty cool. Screen readers are pretty essential for blind and visually impaired users to navigate their computers and the web. So the screen reader that I am using is called VoiceOver. VoiceOver is a native application that comes with Macs, but more common programs are things like NVDA and JAWS. You would find those on Windows. But yeah, because I have a Mac, we'll use VoiceOver today. So let's turn on VoiceOver. It's important to keep in mind that someone using a screen reader is not going to be using their mouse typically. They'll use their keyboard to navigate, so you won't see my mouse move around a whole lot. But let's go ahead and turn it on.
VoiceOver on Chrome. Accessibility demos vertical line Thrift County. Google Chrome. Window. Accessibility demos vertical line Thrift County. Selected. Tab.
So one of the first things that you'll notice about the screen reader is, of course, it read out loud to me what it's focused on, which in this case, it's the Chrome tab that has the title of my webpage in it. So it read out the title to me. It let me know that it was on Chrome and it was on a tab and all of that. But also you'll see that black outline that's like kind of highlighted around the tab, just indicating like where we're at on the page. So I can use my keyboard now to start navigating the different elements in my browser.
New tab button.
Okay.
New tab.
So I moved over to the new tab button and it announced that out to me. Next one.
Back button. Press to go back. Context menu to see history.
Okay, so I just went to the back button and it let me know, what the back button does. So as you can imagine, it could take me a while to navigate through all of the stuff that's in my browser, like the address bar and all my plugins. And then into the web page itself, where I have like the extension logo, the little drop-down arrow, and then the other stuff like the navigation on the left, like all of those links. So one tool that we'll keep looking at today is called the rotor, which is like this tool that lets you jump to different places on the page depending on how it's marked up. So let's go ahead and open that up and see what it looks like.
Links menu.
Okay, so when I opened up the rotor, the very first thing it showed me was the links menu. So now I actually see like every link that's on this page. If I go over one,
Headings menu.
then I have my headings menu. And in my headings menu, you can see, the very first thing that it lists there is one accessibility demos. That's because the first heading on my webpage is that, that's the heading one of my page. And so when a person is using like a screen reader, they're typically going to use these kinds of shortcuts to get to the content of the page. And that's why, we mention best practices like using headings to break up the content and organize your page, because it actually provides like an easy way for someone using like assistive technology to navigate around. So let's go ahead and see what that does.
Heading level 1. Accessibility demos.
So I'm on heading level 1, and you can already see in the background there that there's this black outline around my, my first heading. I can keep going down the page if I want to.
Heading level 2. Images. Heading level 3. Images must include alt text.
Yeah, so I could jump potentially to the third heading of this page if I wanted to, if that was what I was looking for, that seemed to me like that was the information that I was looking for. But I'm going to go ahead and just go back to the heading 1.
Heading level 2. Images. Heading level 1. Accessibility demos.
Okay, and press return.
Heading level 1. Accessibility demos.
Okay, and so now, I'm already where I need to be in the web page content without having to go through the navigation or the search bar and all that stuff. So I can start using my keyboard to navigate further down the page.
Heading level 2. Images. Heading level 3. Images must include alt text.
And of course, VoiceOver lets me know, it speaks out to me all the headings that I scroll through.
List 2 items.
It's letting me know now that I'm on a list.
Bullet 1 of 2.
The bullet.
Visited, link, demo, VoiceOver on an image without alt text. Chrome has new window.
Okay, so it let me know that I was on a visited link. It read out the text of that link to let me know what it's about. So I think you get the idea of how a person, will navigate a web page using a screen reader. And really, the point of my demos today isn't to show you how to do it, but it's to give you context. So, hopefully you understand why we encourage you to use best practices for accessibility, using descriptive link text, using headings intentionally, alt text on images, all of these things, like when we do them intentionally and completely, it means that like somebody using assistive technology like a screen reader can actually navigate your web page and it's accessible to them. So let's talk about images. Images on your web pages must include alt text. Alt text describes the purpose of the image and or provides a description of what the image is of. Alt text doesn't have to be long, but it should accurately describe the image. When using images of graphs or diagrams, you could also include, additional text near the image or, the graphic to explain the meaning of it. If you are linking an image, the alt text should explain where the user will go if they activate the link. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you how to do that in AEM or WordPress. But first, let's look at a quick demo of what happens when a screen reader tries to look at an image that doesn't have alt text. Okay, so our first demo today is going to go over VoiceOver, what happens with the screen reader when you get to a picture on the page or an image that doesn't have alternative text. So right now you can see that I am on the heading of this page. You can tell because there's a black outline around it. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the page.
The image to the right doesn't have any alternative text. What happens when a screen reader gets to the image on the page?
Okay, so far so good. VoiceOver just read out that paragraph to me in text. So now I'm going to move to the image and let's see what happens.
End of main.
Okay, so VoiceOver just told me that we reached the end of the page, but it didn't let me know that there was a picture of strawberries there because we didn't put alternative text on that image. So basically, if you leave alt text out of an image, it's basically invisible to a person who's using a screen reader. Okay, so I spent a few moments just adding alt text to the image using AEM. So now that I've done that, let's see what happens when the screen reader gets to the image on the page. Okay, so first I'm going to navigate to the paragraph.
Now our image on the right has alt text. What will a screen reader do when it gets to the image?
Okay, so now to the image.
Strawberries, image.
Okay, so that was pretty to the point because our alt text is so short, but that's okay. It gets the point across of what that image is of. And the most important thing is that it didn't skip the image on the page this time because we actually provided the alt text. Okay, so let's go over real quick how to add alt text using AEM. Okay, so in AEM, you want to go to your image component, and then you want to select the wrench icon up in the top left-hand corner of the component. That'll bring up the dialog. And so in the dialog, you can fill out the alt text in the title field. You'll notice that there is an alt text field there as well. But in the case of like using AEM, if you fill it out in the title field, it'll actually cover the alt text and the title. So you can do that there. Okay. In WordPress, you want to make sure that you go in and you select your image block. In the image block settings, select media library. Okay, that'll bring up your media library. From there, you'll want to select your image. And then you'll want to fill out the alt text field that's over in the right-hand side. So let's talk about image sliders and galleries. Just like single images, image galleries and sliders need to have alt text or captions for each image. Field names may vary in AEM or WordPress, but you're typically looking for a title or a caption field. If the slide is linked, you can even phrase the alt text or caption as like a call to action. So for example, if your slide was like pointing somebody to your programs page, what you could do is, phrase the caption as like, learn more about our programs. So another important best practice, don't use images to convey text. A screen reader will not be able to convey the text in your image to the visitor. You should instead use rich text options in the editor, in like AEM or WordPress. the only exception to this rule are images of logos. In that case, you want to just make sure that the image includes alt text that accurately describes the logo. So, if we had like a image of the UGA extension logo, we would make sure that the alt text states something like University of Georgia extension. So let's see a example of the issue I'm talking about.
So on this page, you can see that I have two really nice looking image flyers for upcoming events happening in our fictional Thrift County. We've got this virtual camping experience thing on the left and then an online health and wellness fair on the right. These images look really, really nice. But what happens when we get to the images using a screen reader? Let's see.
Heading Level 2, Upcoming Events. We hope you will join us for the events below. Virtual Camping Experience, image. Online Health and Wellness Fair, image.
Okay, so you'll notice that when I scroll to, when I tab over to one of these images, it reads out the short alt text that I attach to each image, but it doesn't give me all of the information like the schedule, the register online link. All of that information was left out because a screen reader unfortunately can't actually read text that's on that's embedded into an image. That's part of why we have alt text to begin with. So your next thought might be, okay, so can we put all of that information into the alt text field? But unfortunately that doesn't really work because alt text is meant to be short. If you did that, it would be really cumbersome and you wouldn't have all the advantages of headings and stuff like that that would give the screen reader user pauses to help them take in the information instead of it just continuously talking at them. So what we need to do is make sure that we include all of the same information that's provided in these images on the page as text, using heading formats and links and bulleted lists, really whatever we need to do, but it has to be text on the page. After reworking this page a little bit in AEM, using some, different components, I now have all of the information that was in the images as text on the page. And, you can see where this is going. All of this information will be easily read by the screen reader. I'm going to tab down a little bit just to show you what I mean. Let's go to the schedule part.
We hope you will join us for the events below. Heading Level 2, Virtual Camping Experience 2020, an online summer camp for grades 4-12. Heading Level 3, Schedule.
Right, so all of that information can actually be read now, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the second event using my rotor.
Headings menu. Heading Level 1, Heading Level 2. Heading level 2, Online Health and Wellness Fair.
Okay, so, as you can see in the rotor, all of the headings are outlined now. It's really easy to jump down into the different sections of information on the page.
Heading Level 2, Online Health and Wellness Fair.
Okay, so yeah, not a whole lot of advanced technique here. We're just using our components that we already know how to use in the in AEM to present the information as text on the page. Also notice that I did include a thumbnail version of the flyer on the right-hand side of each of these, which is perfectly okay to do for visual interest. Really, the most important part is that you always provide a text alternative for content like this when, otherwise it wouldn't be accessible. One exception to the no text in images rule are logos. So take our UGA extension logo here in the top left-hand corner. Obviously we can't duplicate that look using the tools that our programs provide us like AEM and WordPress. Logos really have to be images, and that's okay. Just make sure that you provide proper alt text so that it communicates out to the user what it is.
Moving on, video and audio content. So videos and audio they must always include captions and transcripts. Make sure your videos are captioned In AEM, we actually have a checkbox on YouTube components where you verify that a video has been captioned, since it is a compliance requirement. Be wary of auto captions. They are almost always inaccurate, especially with YouTube. So, review and edit them as needed. And then, when embedding audio content like podcasts, be sure to provide like a text transcript along with it as well. Okay, so how do you caption YouTube videos? The easiest method is working with the Office of Communication and Creative Services. Let OCCS know about your upcoming video project, and they can advise on video production, hosting, captioning, and marketing. Then you can send your video. Once you've produced your video, you can send it to them and they'll upload it to the correct YouTube channel, either the college one or the extension one. They will send back a transcript to you that was auto-generated from YouTube, and then you'll listen to it and you'll make corrections as needed. And then finally, you'll send back the corrected transcript to them and they'll apply it to the video. And from there, you can share it. Okay. The second method is do it yourself. So if your area already has a YouTube channel, you can upload the video yourself and edit the captions before sharing. So let's see real quick how that works. How do we caption those YouTube videos?
So in this video, we're going to add captions to our already uploaded video. You'll want to make sure that you're logged into your YouTube account that you've uploaded the video to. And then over here in the top right-hand corner of YouTube, if we click on the icon, it's going to give us all these options. The first thing we'll want to do is click on YouTube Studio. In the channel dashboard, I'm going to go over to the left-hand side and click on Videos. I'm going to find the video that I want to add captions to, which is this first one. And then while looking at the details for this particular video, if I go to the left-hand side where it says subtitles, it'll bring up this, this screen which tells me that I already have automatic English subtitles. It's easier to go ahead and just edit the automatic subtitles. That way you don't have to go and write all of the captions yourself. You can just edit what it already came up with. So I'm going to click on that. Before I get into editing the captions here, I do want to mention that depending on how long your video is, it may take a day or so for the auto captions to appear. Mine happened pretty quickly just because my video is very short, but you just want to keep that in mind. You might not see the auto captions straight away after you upload the video. So on the screen you can see that I have like a timeline of my captions on the left, and then my video here is on the right. There's also like a timeline underneath that where I can scroll through the video to see where the captions start and end that way. I'm going to go ahead and click the edit button up here. Now it's going to allow me to go to the left and start typing in and kind of correcting anything that's wrong with the captions. So one thing I'm noticing off the bat is that towards the end of my video I mention, well here, let's listen to it real quick. Let's go to that part. Okay, so right about here, about the accessibility part. But if you're interested in video production stuff, we do have a video about how to create videos on our YouTube channel. That's the CAES OIT YouTube channel. I'll be sure to include a link to that as a follow-up to our training today. Okay, so you could see that when I said CAES OIT, it translated that out in the timeline here to CAE soy tea, as in like what you drink. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. But if you're interested in So now it says videos on our YouTube channel. That's the CAS OIT YouTube channel. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can go in and fix here. Punctuation is like not happening, so we can go in and start correcting for that. So let's see, hey everyone. This is Ashley from the web team. So go ahead, web team, capitalize. And yeah, that's basically the gist of it. You know, you want to go ahead and listen through your video and make sure that the captions fit what you're saying, especially things like brand names and that sort of thing, because YouTube definitely doesn't know our name, so it translated it kind of weird. Okay, so once you've made your changes, go ahead and hit the Save Changes button in the top right-hand corner. And now you can see this message says that subtitles are published, and we have both the English automatic option and then just the English option, which is the version we created. It's a good idea to go ahead and review your subtitles after you finish, just to make sure everything looks good. You can do that by going to the video like it's viewed here and clicking on the CC button. Automatically your English subtitles that you were working on will come up as the first option, and then you can just go ahead and play. Hey everyone, this is Ashley from the web team. I just wanted to show you today how to add captions to a YouTube video that you've already uploaded. We're not going to go over the process of like creating. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just pause that for the sake of time. You kind of get the idea though. You just want to make sure that you, after you've made your changes, that you watch the video and look at the subtitles and make sure that everything looks good. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So the next thing we're going to talk about are links. Links should be descriptive. So link text, that's the text you highlight to create a link on a page. It should be descriptive, and what we mean by that is, you know, try reading your link text out loud. Does it tell you enough about where the link will send you, even out of context? So to that end, you know, avoid links that are like read more or click here. Those types of links don't really mean anything out of context and will be useless for a screen reader user. So, you know, again, be specific about where links will lead. So let's see a demo. You know, what happens when there are a bunch of click here links on a page. On this page about monthly club meetings, there are a few links. So for this demo, let's pretend I'm in a hurry and I want to quickly scan the page for links I'm interested in. So let's open up the rotor.
Links menu.
Okay, so the rotor shows us all of the links on the page, but there are a few links in this list that just say click here.
Link, visit link, click here.
So click here does not give me any idea about where I will go if I follow the link. This kind of link text is completely useless when you take it out of its context, like in this rotor tool. So since using shortcuts like the rotor here is common and useful for screen reader users, we want to make sure that link text is descriptive. It should give enough information about where it's sending you even out of context. Another way to think about it is if you say that link text out loud, does it make sense to you? Does it give you an idea of where you will go if you follow the link? So here's the page again, and this time I have replaced the click here links with more descriptive links. So the key here is to make sure that our links make sense out of context, even if we don't have all the text around it to tell us what's going on, because sometimes, you know, screen reader users will want to scan the page quickly. So if I open up the rotor, that's how I would do that.
Links menu.
Okay, and now I can kind of scroll.
Link, image, visited, link, Thrift County, visited, link, next club urban club meeting details.
Okay, so I kind of went through that quickly, but keep in mind, like, a screen reader user might sit and listen to the links as they go down the page as well. So that's kind of why it's important to make sure that your links are also not super long. And as far as text goes, usually less than 100 characters is what we recommend. But aside from that, at least now our links give more context. So instead of having like 3 identical links that say click here, they are more specific, and so I'll have a better idea of where I'm going next. Okay,
So over here on the left, we have a really, really long link, like 2 sentences are in that link. So that's more than 100 characters, and it's definitely like a lot to take in if you were listening to that in a list of links. So instead, what you should do is, link the call to action, or, make sure like that has enough context. Contact your local office is what we want them to do. And it's definitely like enough information for them to understand what will happen next after they click on it. Okay, my next example over on the left is it's the literal web address of a page. Completely hyperlinked, and you can imagine if you listen to that being read out loud, it would be super annoying. So instead, what you should do, in this case, what we could do is like take the title of the page that we're linking to and type that out instead and highlight it, and then that's definitely enough information for that person to understand where they're going next. But this last one, it's a little harder to maybe figure out exactly what's wrong with it. But in this case, we have a form. We have a summer camp sign up form that's in like a PDF format. So when you click on it, it's going to download a PDF. You want to make sure that you communicate like something that's going to make like a new window open up or download something like apparent in the link text, so that like a screen reader user would have enough information to know what's going to happen. It shouldn't be a surprise to them. So the easy fix for that is just to make sure that you wrap your link around the download PDF part as well. So next up, let's talk about headings. So headings are the format styles that you use to make text larger. So like heading 2, heading 3. But they should be used intentionally to organize the content on your page. It's important to use them that way since headings help users quickly scan a page and find sections by topic. So, don't use headings on entire paragraphs. Like, don't use that style on a whole paragraph. Using heading styles simply for emphasis, because it makes the font larger, creates issues for a screen reader user. Another thing to avoid is you don't want to skip, heading levels. So for example, let's say that I had a heading 2 to begin a section, and then I immediately used a heading 4 right after that for subsections. Notice that we skipped heading level 3, and that's not good. It may seem like a small thing, but since headings provide structure for navigating the page, to screen reader users, skipping a heading level can be kind of confusing for them. So let's see what happens with a screen reader when we use our headings incorrectly.
In this demo, we're going to see what happens with a screen reader when you misuse headings. So we see this a lot on our sites. Sometimes a content manager wants to make sure important information is emphasized on a page, so they will use heading styles because it makes the text bigger. Here you can see there is a heading 2 style used on the first 2 lines. The second line about the shelter-in-place order is 2 sentences, but the whole thing is marked up as a heading. Then there are 2 complete sentences under that which are styled with heading 3. Unfortunately, using headings this way is an accessibility issue. Headings are meant to help break up content and organize a page. They help you scan a page quickly to find what you need, usually by topic. And a screen reader program takes that concept and presents the headings as a quick list that the user can tab through, like VoiceOver's writer. But if we use headings for their appearance and highlight entire paragraphs, then it defeats the purpose and makes the headings writer kind of cumbersome for a screen reader user. Another heading-related issue on this page is further down. So here we have a heading level 2, our program areas, but for the program areas underneath, like A&R and Family and Consumer Sciences, 4-H, we have skipped heading 3 styles and are using heading 4 styles. So this might not seem like a big deal, but this can actually be confusing for a screen reader user. The screen reader announces out loud to the user what each heading level is. So let me show you.
Heading Level 4, Agriculture and Natural Resources. Heading Level 2, our program areas.
Okay, so if a heading level is skipped, then the user might think that they somehow skipped or missed a section of content. This could be like a technical issue. They might suspect that it is, but it's still confusing. So we want to avoid that. I wanted to show you how these misused headings look inside of VoiceOver's rotor. So pretty much all of the information from the first section of the page is included now in the heading section of the rotor. So let's scroll down to one of those.
Heading level 2 items. Due to the shelter-in-place order from Governor Kemp, the Yuga Extension Thrift County office will be closed until further notice. However, we are teleworking and able to assist if possible. Group.
So that was a lot of information for what's supposed to be the heading section, which is not useful or expected. We should just have concise headings in this menu to help navigate the content on the page. And for our section where the heading level 3 was skipped, the issue is reflected here as well.
Heading level 2, our program areas.
Okay.
Heading level 4, Agriculture and Natural Resources.
So
heading
I have
level 2, our program areas.
A heading level 4 immediately after a heading level 2. Again, a skipped heading level can be confusing for someone trying to quickly navigate the page with a screen reader. Now our page is using heading styles correctly and intentionally. They are used to help organize the content on the page and aren't applied to whole paragraphs for visual emphasis. So instead, on my first section about Thrift County's office being closed, I'm using one heading 2 at the start of the announcement.
Heading level 2, Thrift County office temporarily closed.
Next, I have some paragraphs with details. For emphasis, I used the bold style on the first sentence, and to draw more attention to the section, I've added an alert graphic to the right. So adding a graphic and bolding the first sentence are ways that we can bring attention to the announcement without highlighting entire bodies of text and heading styles. The fix for the issue below is simply switching the heading 4 styles I used before with heading 3s, so a heading level isn't skipped after the heading 2 that starts the section. So here we have heading 2 that I've highlighted, and then
heading level 3, Agriculture and Natural Resources.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so over in the rotor,
headings menu.
With our corrections, the headings are simplified and easier to tab through.
Heading level 2 items. Our program areas. Group.
And I can easily figure out what the content of this page is about and skip to a section I'm interested in.
Heading level 3. Family and Consumer Sciences. Heading level 3. Family and Consumer Sciences.
And that's what we're aiming for, using headings to organize the content and make the page easier to read. It's worth noting that not only does this help screen reader users, but organizing and breaking up your content with headings helps everyone more easily read your web pages.
So best practices for tables on your web page. So, don't use tables for layout. If you're just trying to format the appearance of the content on your page, make use of like columns in AEM or WordPress instead. Avoid creating complex data tables when possible. The more complex your table structure is, the harder it is to make accessible. So, even if it's a simple table, making it accessible can be complicated. If you need to include a data table, please reach out to us at the web team to make sure that the table is set up properly for screen readers. Okay, so the last topic we're going to talk about are PDFs. First I'll say about PDFs is that make sure that they are easy to read. Don't place text over busy backgrounds that make it harder to read them. Examples of hard to read text includes like text over a photo, like a photo background, and text over like a background color that has like low contrast. So an example of that would be like light gray text on a white background. That would be low contrast and hard to read. But like black text on a white background is an example of like high contrast. There's actually like this tool that you can use to help you figure out the contrast ratio between two colors on this website called Webbing. it lets you know if the colors contrast will pass or fail for accessibility purposes. And I did include that link in the slide so that you'll have access to that tool after our presentation today. Okay. So the last thing about PDFs, accessible PDFs should have tags. Tags are like these invisible, like structured data that conveys a PDF's information to a screen reader. Fortunately, PDFs created in Word automatically have tags. However, you would still want to check over the tags and run another accessibility check using something like Adobe Acrobat Pro or Foxit Phantom PDF. I mean, really the process of creating and making sure a PDF document is properly tagged and accessible deserves its own training session. But since we don't have time to go through it all today, I do have a link here to WebAIM's tutorial for PDF accessibility. PDFs can be kind of hard to make accessible, and they're not very mobile friendly either. If you ever had to read a PDF on your phone before, you probably noticed that it's hard to pinch and zoom in. You have to like zoom in a lot to kind of read it. For that reason, that's why we kind of recommend that you try to avoid using PDFs when possible and use websites, use your website's like rich text capabilities instead. And then it's easier to make accessible and, it's automatically mobile friendly. Okay, so if you remember nothing else about today, these are kind of the major takeaways for best practices. Give your images alt text. Don't use images to convey text information. Make link text descriptive. It should make sense out of context. Use headings to organize and structure your page without using those, using heading styles on entire paragraphs. And I'd say that these are probably like the easy wins when it comes to making our sites more accessible. And by doing them, it would really help improve our sites a lot. Okay, so that's all we have to talk about today. I hope now you have a better idea of what web accessibility is. I hope you now have like the confidence to take a look at your website and maybe make it more accessible if it needs some work.